The deep space sensors of Galactic Federation Station Horizon picked up something impossible. Captain Paul Miller leaned forward in his command chair, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data streaming across his console. The readings made no sense at all. Beside him, the crystalline alien commander Zixtar floated in a shimmering bubble of liquid atmosphere. His translucent tentacles rippled with confusion, creating waves of bioluminescent color that Paul had learned to read as concern. The Zalathi had been spacefaring for over 3,000 years, and even Zixtar seemed troubled by what they were seeing. "Run the scan again," Paul ordered, his voice calm despite the growing unease in his gut. There must be some kind of sensor malfunction. Lieutenant Kate Johnson, the only other human on the bridge crew, fingers danced across her control panel. Her face grew pale as the results came back identical. "No malfunction, sir. The object is real and it's moving at approximately 4 times standard faster than light speed." Paul stood up slowly, his military training keeping his movements controlled. The bridge fell silent as every crew member, representing 7 different species, turned to look at their human captain. In the 5 decades since humanity had joined the Galactic Federation, they'd earned a reputation for staying cool under pressure. Paul intended to maintain that reputation. 4 times standard FTL? He repeated. That's theoretically impossible. The Federation's best scientists had established the universal FTL limit centuries ago. Nothing could exceed it. The laws of physics simply didn't allow it. Yet here was an object blazing through space at speeds that shouldn't exist. Sensor Officer Vekthar, a 4-armed Altarian, chittered nervously. "Captain, I'm detecting no drive emissions we recognize, no hyperspace wake, no subspace distortion field, no quantum tunnel signatures. Whatever propulsion they're using, it's nothing in our database." Paul felt a chill run down his spine. The Galactic Federation comprised 47 species and controlled thousands of star systems. Their combined knowledge represented millions of years of technological development. If they didn't recognize this drive signature— "Distance to intercept?" Paul asked. "At current velocity, they'll reach our position in 14 minutes, Kate reported. "Captain, they're slowing down, speed dropping to 3 times FTL. 2 times. They're definitely coming here." Paul hit the communication button on his armrest. "All hands. This is the captain. Set condition yellow. We have an unknown contact approaching at high speed. All departments report readiness status." The station's lights shifted to a soft amber glow as yellow alert activated. Throughout the massive structure, beings of various species moved to their assigned positions. Horizon Station was primarily a scientific and trading outpost, but it maintained defensive capabilities as required by Federation law. "Try to establish communication," Paul ordered, "all known frequencies and protocols." Communications Officer Drell, a diminutive Nexari with compound eyes, extended his sensory filaments toward his console. "Transmitting standard first contact. Package now, Captain." No response yet. Paul watched the tactical display as the unknown vessel continued its approach. The object appeared as a red dot against the star field, its trajectory arrow pointing directly at their station. Whatever it was, it definitely intended to pay them a visit. "Captain," Zixtar's melodic voice carried undertones of worry. "The unknown vessel's mass readings are unusual. The hull composition doesn't match any known alloys or composite materials in Federation records." "Weapons status?" Paul asked, though he hoped they wouldn't need them. "Defensive screens at full power," reported Security Chief Grix, a heavily armored Vandorian. "Point defense systems online. But Captain, I must note that anything capable of that velocity could likely outmaneuver our targeting systems." The minutes ticked by slowly. Paul forced himself to remain seated, projecting an aura of calm confidence for his crew. Inside, his mind raced through possibilities. First contact situations were rare, but not unprecedented. The Federation had encountered 16 new species in the past century, but none had announced themselves quite like this. "Visual range in 30 seconds, Kate announced. "They've dropped to sublight speed. Approach vector suggests they intend to stop just outside our defense perimeter. On screen," Paul ordered. The main display shimmered and revealed the vastness of space. Stars glittered against the black void, and then something else appeared. Paul heard several crew members gasp. The ship was unlike anything in Federation records. Its hull seemed to flow and shift as if the metal itself was liquid. Sharp angles merged seamlessly into smooth curves. It was simultaneously elegant and menacing, primitive and advanced. The vessel was smaller than Paul expected, perhaps only 300 meters in length, but something about it radiated power. "Life signs?" Paul asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kate's hands trembled slightly as she worked her console. "Scanning. Captain, I'm reading carbon-based biology. Oxygen, nitrogen, atmosphere, bipedal forms. Body temperature approximately 310 Kelvin. Sir, these readings are almost identical to human." Paul finished for her. His heart pounded in his chest. "They read as human." The bridge erupted in surprised chatter. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Federation. Having only achieved FTL travel half a century ago, Earth's technology, while advancing rapidly, was still generations behind the older species. The idea that unknown humans could be flying around in a ship that defied Federation science was absurd. "Incoming transmission," Drell announced suddenly. "Audio only, it's in perfect galactic standard." Paul straightened in his chair. "Let's hear it." The speakers crackled to life, and a voice filled the bridge. It was calm, confident, and unmistakably human, though it carried an accent Paul couldn't place. "Federation Station Horizon. This is the exploration vessel Pioneer. We are peaceful explorers requesting permission to dock. We mean no harm and wish only to establish friendly contact." Paul exchanged glances with Kate. Her expression mirrored his own confusion and excitement. He activated his communicator. "Pioneer, this is Captain Paul Miller commanding Station Horizon. Your approach has been rather unusual. Please identify your origin and affiliation." There was a pause before the response came. "Captain Miller, that's going to require a face-to-face explanation. I think you'll find our story quite interesting. May we dock?" Paul considered for a moment. The ship had demonstrated capabilities far beyond anything in Federation space. If they'd wanted to attack, the station probably couldn't stop them anyway, but his instincts, honed by years of space service, told him these visitors weren't hostile. "Permission granted," Paul said finally. "Proceed to docking Bay 7. We'll meet you there." "Thank you, Captain." Pioneer out. As the mysterious ship moved toward the station, Paul stood and straightened his uniform. "Kate, Zixtar, you're with me. Grix, maintain yellow alert but weapons on standby only. I don't want to appear hostile." Walking toward the turbolift, Paul couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Humans who shouldn't exist, flying a ship that defied physics itself. Whatever was about to walk through that airlock, Paul knew the galaxy would never be the same. The unknown ship had been detected. It was too fast, had no known origin, and appeared to be human. The impossible had just arrived at their doorstep, and Paul Miller was about to shake its hand. Paul Miller stood before the massive airlock of Docking Bay 7, his heart beating faster than it had in years. Kate Johnson shifted nervously beside him, her hand resting on the scanner at her belt. Zixtar floated in his mobile environment, sphere, his crystalline form pulsing with curious colors. Around them, a security team maintained a respectful distance. Paul had ordered them to remain non-threatening but alert. The mysterious Pioneer had docked with surprising gentleness, its hull morphing slightly to create a perfect seal with their docking port. "Atmospheric match confirmed," the Bay technician announced. "Their air mixture is identical to Earth standard. Temperature and pressure within human comfort range." Paul nodded, unsurprised but still puzzled. Everything about these visitors screamed human origin, yet that was impossible. He knew every human ship in Federation space. Earth's colonies were still young, and no human vessel had technology remotely close to what Pioneer had demonstrated. The airlock began its cycle. Paul straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. First contact protocols ran through his mind, but this felt different. These were humans meeting humans, yet somehow still aliens meeting for the first time. The inner door slid open with a soft hiss. 3 figures stepped through, wearing form-fitting suits that seemed to shimmer with their own light. They moved with the easy confidence of experienced spacers, and Paul noticed they showed no signs of gravity adjustment. Wherever they came from, standard gravity was normal for them. The lead figure reached up and touched something at his neck. His helmet folded away like liquid metal, revealing a human face that could have come from any city on Earth. He was perhaps 40 years old, with short brown hair showing gray at the temples and intelligent blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Captain Miller," the man said, stepping forward with an extended hand. "I'm Commander John Davis. Thank you for allowing us to dock." Paul shook the offered hand, noting the firm grip and calloused palm. This was someone who worked with his hands despite his rank. "Commander Davis, welcome to Federation Station Horizon. These are my officers, Lieutenant Kate Johnson and Commander Zixtar." The other 2 visitors removed their helmets. A woman with dark skin and short black hair nodded politely. "Dr. Lisa Brown, xenoanthropologist and medical officer." The third, a younger man with Hispanic features and an easy smile, gave a small wave. "Mike Rodriguez, chief engineer. Beautiful station you have here." Paul studied them carefully. They spoke perfect English with slight accents he couldn't place. Their body language was relaxed but alert, like professional military personnel in a potentially uncertain situation. Everything about them felt familiar, yet subtly wrong. "I have to ask," Paul said directly. "Where exactly are you from? Your ship's capabilities are beyond anything in Federation space, and we know every human colony and vessel." John Davis smiled, but Paul saw something deeper in his eyes. Sadness? Loneliness? "That's a complicated question, Captain. Is there somewhere we can talk privately? What we have to share might be unsettling for your crew." Paul glanced at Zixtar, who flickered in the pattern that meant agreement. "Conference room 3 is secure, if you'll follow me." As they walked through the station corridors, Paul noticed how the visitors observed everything. Their eyes tracked security cameras, emergency exits, and structural details with professional interest. Mike Rodriguez occasionally touched the wall as if feeling the station's vibration through his fingertips. Other crew members stopped to stare as they passed. News of the mysterious ship had spread quickly, and seeing apparent humans in unknown uniforms caused whispers in dozen languages. Paul was grateful when they reached the conference room without incident. Once the door sealed behind them, John Davis let out a long breath. "Before we begin, I need to establish something. Dr. Brown, if you would." Lisa Brown pulled a small device from her suit and held it toward Paul. "May I scan you, Captain? It's completely harmless, but we need to confirm something." Paul nodded, curious. A soft blue light played over him for several seconds before the device chimed softly. "Quantum signature confirmed," Lisa announced. "He's from this reality branch, divergence point approximately 400 years ago." "Reality branch?" Kate asked, leaning forward. "What are you talking about?" John Davis sat down heavily, suddenly looking very tired. "We're from Earth, just not your Earth. We're from a parallel universe where human history took a different path." The room fell silent. Paul felt the blood drain from his face. Parallel universes were theoretical in Federation science, discussed by physicists but never proven. Yet these people claim to have crossed between them. "That's impossible," Zixtar's translated voice carried disbelief. "Dimensional barrier mathematics suggest infinite energy requirements." Mike Rodriguez grinned. "Only if you try to break through directly. We don't break the barriers, we slip between them, like finding the gaps in a fence instead of trying to smash through it." "Tell us your story," Paul said quietly. "From the beginning." John Davis nodded. "In our reality, humanity discovered faster than light travel in the year 2150, not through hyperspace or subspace, but through quantum manipulation. We learned to shift between dimensional layers where physical constants are different, where the speed of light isn't a limit." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "By 2200, we had colonies across our galaxy. By 2250, we discovered we weren't alone. But every alien species we met was far behind us technologically. We became protectors, teachers, explorers. And then, Kate prompted. Then we discovered the resonance patterns, Lisa Brown continued. Quantum signatures that repeat across parallel universes. We learned that certain consciousness patterns, certain ways of thinking and being, echo across realities. Humans generate one of the strongest patterns. 5 years ago, John said, we built Pioneer, a ship designed to navigate between parallel universes, following human quantum signatures. We've visited 7 alternate Earths so far. Yours is the 8th. Paul's mind reeled. What did you find in these other universes? Humans, Mike said, simply. Always humans. Sometimes alone, sometimes part of galactic communities, but always pushing boundaries, always innovating, always surprising other species with their adaptability and creativity. In one universe, humans never left Earth but developed incredible psychic abilities, Lisa added. In another, they bioengineered themselves into something beyond physical form. But the core pattern remains the same. Zixtar's form shifted to deep purple, indicating profound thought. You're suggesting humans are some kind of universal constant? More like a universal catalyst, John replied. Wherever we exist, we change things. We make the impossible possible. It's not superiority. It's just our nature. We dream of impossible things and then make them real. Paul stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe had just shifted. Why come here? Why contact us? Because you need to know, John said softly. Your humans are young in the galactic scene, but you have the same potential. You've already started surprising the Federation races with your rapid advancement. That's just the beginning. We're explorers, Lisa added. We map the quantum resonance patterns, document different branches of human development, and sometimes we share knowledge to help humanity reach its potential. You're going to change everything, Paul said, not turning from the window. No, John corrected. You are. We're just here to show you it's possible. The rest is up to you. Paul finally turned back to face them. 3 humans from another reality, sitting in his conference room, casually discussing the fundamental nature of human existence across multiple universes. It was impossible, unbelievable, and yet undeniably real. Show us, he said finally. Show us what you know. Help us understand what we really are. John Davis smiled, and for the first time since their arrival, it reached his eyes. That's exactly what we hoped you'd say. The engineering deck of Station Horizon buzzed with excitement. Word had spread that the human visitors possessed technology beyond Federation understanding, and every scientist and engineer on the station wanted a glimpse. Paul had limited access, to essential personnel only, but that still meant a crowd of 30 beings from 8 different species. Mike Rodriguez stood in the center of the main workshop, completely at ease despite being surrounded by alien engineers. He had removed his suit jacket, revealing arms covered in faint scars and strange tattoo-like patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Before we begin, Mike said, rolling up his sleeves, I need you all to forget everything you think you know about physics. Where we come from, we learned that the universe doesn't have rules, just habits, and habits can be changed. Chief Engineer Vekthar clicked his mandibles skeptically. The 4-armed Altarian had served in the Federation fleet for 200 years. Physical laws are absolute. The speed of light, conservation of energy, quantum uncertainty. These are not habits, Mike grinned. Watch this. He pulled a small sphere from his pocket, no bigger than a marble. Setting it on the workbench, he touched it gently. The sphere rose into the air and began to glow. Anti-gravity is not unknown to us, Vekthar said dismissively. We have mastered. His words died as the sphere suddenly split into 2 identical spheres, then 4, then 8. Each sphere orbited the others in a complex pattern, defying momentum and creating their own gravity fields. Conservation of mass? Kate whispered from beside Paul. He just violated conservation of mass. Not violated, Mike corrected, hearing her comment. Borrowed. The extra mass comes from parallel dimensional states. It exists in quantum superposition until I collapse the wave function into our reality. He waved his hand, and the spheres merged back into one, dropping gently into his palm. Your physics says this is impossible because you're looking at one universe in isolation. We learn to work with infinite universes simultaneously. A young Nexari scientist raised a tentacle. Show us your ship's propulsion system. How do you achieve faster-than-light travel without hyperspace? Mike's expression grew serious. That's harder to demonstrate safely inside a station, but I can explain the principles. He activated a holographic projector, and a three-dimensional model of Pioneer appeared in the air. Traditional FTL creates a bubble of altered space-time around your ship, or punches through to hyperspace, or folds space itself. All of these methods fight against the universe's natural state. Our quantum slipstream drive doesn't fight, it cooperates. The hologram showed the ship surrounded by shifting layers of reality. Imagine reality as an onion with infinite layers. Each layer has slightly different physical constants. In some layers, the speed of light is higher. In others, mass has less inertia. We don't move our ship through space, we shift it to layers where motion is easier. That would require calculating trajectory through infinite dimensional states, protested a Zalathi physicist. The computational power alone is why we use quantum computers that exist in multiple states simultaneously, Lisa Brown interjected, entering the workshop. Our navigation system doesn't calculate one path. It calculates all possible paths at once and collapses to the optimal solution. Paul watched the alien scientists struggle with these concepts. Their expressions ranged from disbelief to awe to fear. The implications were staggering. If humans from another universe had mastered such technology, your power generation, Vekthar said slowly, the energy requirements for what you describe would be astronomical. Mike nodded approvingly. Good question. Want to see something really impossible? He pulled another device from his pocket, a cylinder about the size of a pen. This is a pocket fusion reactor. It generates approximately the same power output as your station's main reactor. The room erupted in protests and exclamations. Vekthar's forearms waved in agitation. Impossible. Fusion reactors require magnetic containment, massive shielding, cooling systems. In this universe, yes, Mike agreed. But we found a layer where fusion happens at room temperature. We bring a tiny piece of that reality here, contained in a quantum field. Infinite clean energy in the palm of your hand. He tossed the cylinder to Vekthar, who caught it reflexively, and then nearly dropped it in panic. It's not dangerous, Mike assured him. The containment field has 18 redundant safety systems. Even if they all failed, it would just stop working, not explode. Paul stepped forward. Why share this with us? Technology this advanced could destabilize the entire galaxy. John Davis had been watching quietly from the doorway. Now he entered, his expression thoughtful. Because we've seen what happens when humans are held back. In one universe we visited, an older species tried to limit human technological development. It didn't end well for anyone. Humans have a unique trait, Lisa added. We don't just adapt to challenges. We transform them into opportunities. Your Federation is peaceful now. But what happens when you encounter something truly threatening? You'll need every advantage possible. Besides, Mike said, taking back the fusion cylinder from a still-stunned Vekthar, we're not giving you our technology. We're showing you what's possible. Your scientists will have to figure out their own path to these discoveries. We're just proving it can be done. A Vandorian engineer raised an armored hand. Could you demonstrate your defensive systems? Your ship appeared to have no standard shields, yet you traveled at impossible speeds without stress damage. Mike's eyes lit up. Now that's my favorite system. We call it reality anchoring. Instead of creating shields that push things away, we lock our local space-time to our preferred state. Nothing can damage us because we exist in a pocket of reality where damage is impossible. He set up another demonstration, this time with a metal plate. Watch carefully. He touched the plate and it seemed to shimmer. Then he picked up a cutting torch and directed the flame at the metal. The torch flame bent around the plate without touching it. The heat exists, he explained. But the plate exists in a state where heat cannot affect it. We're not blocking the energy. We're existing in parallel to it. Kate had been running calculations on her pad. She looked up, face pale. The applications of this technology, medical, industrial, military, it changes everything we know about the possible. That's the point, John said quietly. Humans make the impossible possible. Not through magic or divine intervention, but through refusing to accept limitations. It's what we do. Paul watched his crew absorbing these revelations. Some looked excited, others terrified. The Zalathi contingent huddled together, their crystalline forms flickering in rapid communication. The Altarians clicked and chittered among themselves. You've given us a lot to think about, Paul said finally. But I have to ask again, why us? Why this universe? John and Mike exchanged glances. Because your quantum signature is unique, John replied. Your humans are at a crucial development point. You're about to make breakthroughs that will either propel you forward or hold you back for centuries. We wanted to nudge you in the right direction. And, Lisa added softly, because we're lonely. We've traveled through 8 universes, always finding humans, but never quite finding home. Your reality feels familiar, like an echo of where we started. Mike began packing away his demonstration devices. We'll stay for a few weeks, answer questions, share what we can. But ultimately, your destiny is your own, to forge. As the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with discussion, Paul found himself standing next to Vekthar. The old engineer was staring at his 4 hands as if seeing them for the first time. Captain, Vekthar said slowly, I have served in space for 2 centuries. I thought I understood the universe. Now I realize we know nothing. Paul put a hand on one of the alien's shoulders. Maybe that's the first step to knowing everything. 2 weeks had passed since the Pioneer docked at Station Horizon. The impossible had become almost routine as Mike Rodriguez shared glimpses of trans-dimensional technology and Lisa Brown conducted joint research with the station's xenobiologists. Yet Paul Miller sensed there was something more, something the visitors hadn't revealed. The feeling grew stronger when John Davis requested a private meeting, not in the conference room or Paul's office, but in the observation deck at the station's apex where massive viewports offered an unobstructed view of the cosmos. Paul found John standing alone before the largest window, hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the spiral arm of the galaxy that stretched across the void. The commander's reflection in the reinforced glass looked tired, older than his years. You wanted to see me? Paul asked, joining him at the window. John didn't turn. Do you know what the hardest part of our journey has been, Captain? Paul waited, sensing this was important. It's not the technology, John continued, not the physics-breaking travel or the dimensional barriers. It's finding the same pattern everywhere we go, the same story, told in different ways. What pattern? Paul asked, though he suspected he already knew. John finally turned to face him. Humans, Captain, always humans. In every universe we've visited, humans are the catalyst, the spark that ignites change. The species that looks at the impossible and says, let's try anyway. He pulled a small device from his pocket, activating a holographic display. Images flickered in the air between them. Different Earths, different human civilizations, different paths of development. Universe Alpha 3, John narrated. Humans never developed FTL but created a telepathic network spanning their entire solar system. Universe Beta 7, humans uploaded their consciousness into quantum computers and exist as pure information. Universe Gamma 2, humans bioengineered themselves to survive in deep space without suits or ships. The images continued, each showing a radically different version of human achievement. Different paths, different technologies, different bodies even, but always the same core pattern, always pushing boundaries. Paul studied the images. You've mentioned this pattern before, But you haven't explained why you're tracking it. John deactivated the display and moved to a bench near the window. He sat heavily, suddenly looking very human and very vulnerable. Because we're trying to understand something. Something that happened in our universe that we think might be connected to this pattern. Paul sat beside him. What happened? We were the first, John said quietly. In our universe, humans were the first species to achieve true spaceflight. We found ruins of older civilizations, but they had all died out or transcended to something beyond physical existence. For 200 years, we thought we were alone. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Then we started finding the others, younger species just beginning to reach for the stars. And we noticed something strange. Every species we encountered had stories, myths, legends about beings who came before. Teachers, guides, catalysts who sparked their development. The older civilizations you mentioned? That's what we thought at first, but the descriptions didn't match. The myths all described the same type of beings. Bipedal, curious, adaptable. Beings who asked impossible questions and found impossible answers. Paul felt a chill run down his spine. Humans, John confirmed. But here's the thing, the timing was all wrong. These myths were thousands of years old, from before humanity had even developed writing. So we dug deeper. We found quantum resonance patterns in the ruins of the transcended species, patterns that matched human consciousness. John stood again, beginning to pace. We developed a theory. What if humans aren't just one species among many? What if we're something else? A quantum pattern that manifests across multiple universes, always serving the same function, to catalyze change, to push boundaries, to make the impossible possible. That's... Paul struggled for words. That sounds almost religious. Maybe it is, John admitted. Or maybe it's just quantum mechanics. We don't fully understand yet. But the evidence keeps mounting. In every universe, humans appear at crucial moments. Always when the galaxy needs innovation, needs change, needs someone to say, what if we tried this another way? Paul stood to face him. Why are you telling me this? Why now? John met his eyes. Because your universe is at one of those crucial moments. We've been monitoring your Federation's quantum state. There's something coming, Captain. Something big. We don't know what. The patterns only show probability waves. But your galaxy is going to need humanity's particular gifts very soon. Is that why you're really here? To prepare us? Partly, John admitted. But also because we needed to confirm something. Your humans generate the strongest quantum resonance pattern we've ever detected. Stronger than our own. We think that means something important. Paul moved to the window, staring out at the stars. You're saying we're what, some kind of cosmic catalyst? Designed to push evolution forward? Not designed, John corrected. At least we don't think so. More like a natural phenomenon. Like how certain chemicals catalyze reactions, humans catalyze development. It's just what we are. And if we refuse, if we don't want this responsibility, John smiled sadly. Have you ever known humans to back down from a challenge? To see a mountain and not want to climb it? To find a limitation and not try to overcome it? It's not about choice, Captain. It's about nature. Paul was quiet for a long moment. The other species in the Federation. Some of them already fear human advancement. If they knew about this, they won't hear it from us, John assured him. But they'll figure it out eventually. They'll see humans solving problems they thought were unsolvable, creating technologies they deemed impossible, making peace where there was conflict, finding paths where there were walls. You make us sound like heroes from their myths. Maybe we are, John said softly. Maybe that's exactly what we are. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Paul turned back to him. You said something's coming. Something big. Can you tell me anything more? John shook his head. The quantum patterns only show probabilities, but whatever it is, it will require the best of what humans can offer. Innovation, adaptation, the willingness to try the impossible. And you? Will you stay to help? For a little while longer, John replied. But eventually, we have to continue our journey. There are more universes to explore, more patterns to map. And maybe somewhere out there we'll find the answer to the biggest question of all. What question is that? John smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Why? Why do humans exist in every universe? Why do we always serve this function? What made us this way? That's the real mystery, Captain. That's what we're really searching for. They stood in silence, two humans from different realities, contemplating their species' cosmic role. Outside the viewport, the galaxy spun slowly, full of mysteries waiting to be solved, challenges waiting to be overcome. And somewhere in the quantum foam of reality, the pattern continued to spread, rippling across dimensions, ensuring that wherever consciousness arose, wherever civilizations reached for the stars, there would always be humans to light the way forward. We're going to share more technical data with your scientists, John said finally. Not full blueprints, but enough to point them in the right directions. Your people need to make their own breakthroughs. That's important. The pattern only works when humans solve the problems themselves. Paul nodded. I understand, and John, thank you for telling me the truth. John clasped his shoulder. You would have figured it out eventually. Humans always do. We just thought you deserved a head start. The day of departure had arrived. After a month of shared knowledge and cultural exchange, the Pioneer prepared to leave Station Horizon. The docking bay filled with beings from every corner of the Federation, all come to witness the farewell of the impossible humans from another universe. Paul Miller stood with Kate Johnson at the front of the assembly, watching as John Davis and his crew performed final checks on their ship. The Pioneer still defied understanding, its hull flowing like liquid metal, adjusting itself in ways that shouldn't be possible. Captain Miller, Federation Council Representative Thora had arrived overnight, her insectoid form towering over the crowd. The Council has voted. We offer these humans permanent residence in our space. Their knowledge could advance our civilization by centuries. John Davis approached, having overheard. I appreciate the offer, Representative, but we must decline. Our journey isn't finished, but why? Thora's compound eyes glittered with frustration. You've shown us wonders beyond imagination. Stay and help us achieve that potential. John smiled gently. That's exactly why we can't stay. Humans need to find their own path to these discoveries. We can show you it's possible, but you must do the work yourselves. That's how the pattern works. Paul noticed the alien crew members gathering closer, their previous fear replaced by something else. Awe, respect, and underneath it all, a hint of unease. Mike Rodriguez finished loading the last of their equipment and joined them. Besides, there are other human civilizations out there, isolated across dimensional barriers. Someone needs to find them, connect them, let them know they're not alone. Lisa Brown nodded. Every universe we've visited has taught us something new about human potential, and we've barely scratched the surface. There could be thousands, millions of alternate realities, each with its own version of humanity. Sixtar floated forward, his crystalline form pulsing with emotion. The energy signatures from your drive system, Captain, they exceed anything we've ever recorded. The power you're channeling is perfectly safe, Mike assured him. Reality itself wants to help us travel. We're not forcing anything, just asking nicely. As the Pioneer's systems powered up, the station's sensors went wild. Energy readings spiked beyond their measurement capabilities. Space itself seemed to ripple around the ship. Captain, Kate whispered urgently, the quantum resonance they're generating. It's affecting local space-time. I'm reading dimensional fluctuations throughout the station. Paul felt it too. A strange tingling sensation, as if reality itself was becoming fluid. For a moment, he could almost see it. Layers upon layers of existence. Infinite possibilities. Stretching in all directions, John activated the ship's departure sequence. The Pioneer began to glow with an inner light that had nothing to do with conventional physics. Remember what we've shared, he called out. Humans dream of the impossible, and then make it real. That's true in every universe. The alien crew members stepped back instinctively as power built around the ship. Several of the Zalathi began harmonizing in fear, their crystalline bodies resonating with the quantum energies. "Wait," Thora called out. "What about the threat you mentioned? The thing that's coming?" John's expression grew serious. "Trust in human ingenuity. When the challenge comes, you'll find solutions no other species would imagine. It's what humans do." The Pioneer lifted from the deck without using thrusters, held aloft by forces that defied understanding. Reality bent around it like water around a stone. "One more thing," John said, his voice carrying clearly despite the growing distortion. "In about 6 months, your scientists will detect something unusual in the Vega system. Don't ignore it. That discovery will change everything." The ship began to fade, becoming translucent as it shifted between dimensions. Paul saw Lisa Brown wave through the view screen, saw Mike Rodriguez grin and give a thumbs up. Then they were gone. Not in a flash of light or explosion of energy, but simply ceasing to exist in this reality. The only evidence they'd ever been there was the slightly warped deck plating where their ship had rested. The docking bay fell silent. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species stood in stunned quiet, processing what they'd witnessed. Kate broke the silence. "Did that really happen?" Paul looked at the datapad in his hand, containing terabytes of information the visitors had shared. Technical specifications, theoretical frameworks, glimpses of technologies that shouldn't exist. "It happened," he confirmed, "and everything just changed." In the months that followed, human scientists at Station Horizon made breakthrough after breakthrough. Inspired by what they'd seen, guided by the hints left behind, they began to unlock principles that had eluded the Federation for millennia. The galaxy watched with mixed feelings as humanity suddenly leaped forward. Some species welcomed the innovations. Others feared what humans might become. But Paul Miller remembered John's words. Humans were catalysts, dreamers of impossible dreams. And across infinite universes, that truth remained constant. The unknown ship had been detected. It had been impossibly fast with no known origin. And yes, it had been magnificently, impossibly, brilliantly human.